Hello, my name is Betsy Webb and I'm the Superintendent of the Bangor School Department. Today I have principals with me to help share about the registration process. We have Lynn Silk, Principal of the Vine Street School, Ryan Enman, Principal of Fairmount, Paul Butler, Principal at Bangor High School, and Ed Hackett, Principal at the James F. Doughty School. First question, Mrs. Silk.
Yes.
If a family moves to Bangor, how do they even know what schools their child or children may attend? I mean, we have 10 different schools.
That's an excellent question. We do have 5 elementary schools at the K-3 and 2 at the 4-5 middle school. So that's a really good question. We get asked a lot. And there's a couple ways you can find out. One is very easy. You can call any Bangor school and we'd be happy to look that information up and let you know. Or you can go to our website, which is at www.bangorschools.net and look under the parent tab, and there's an information packet right there on how to register your child.
Right, and right online there is a directory, and it shows our neighborhood schools by the street and the street addresses so that parents would know which elementary school or which middle school their child would attend. Mr. Enman, sometimes parents live in one neighborhood, but they have daycare in another neighborhood. What would they do in that circumstance?
You would need to go to your school that is in your neighborhood and ask for a request form from the principal and submit that to the superintendent's office.
Right, and I can share that most often we are able to accommodate parents and know that they need to find appropriate daycare for their children, and we have to make sure that our classrooms are equipped and that we have the right amount of staff members. So parents should do this as soon as possible. And the other thing that they sometimes don't know is they have to do it every single year. They have to make that request every single year because daycares change. And we do verify that children are at those daycares. Good. So thinking about the basic registration process, Mrs. Silk, what would a family need to bring?
You need to bring 2 proofs of residency that you're a Bangor resident. We accept many different types of registration: a driver's license, a lease agreement, a utility bill. Again, on the website there would be a list of other documents, or you could just ask the school secretary or guidance counselor as you're enrolling. You need to bring an original birth certificate for your child or children, immunization records, and the best thing to do is either call ahead and get an appointment or just come right in and see the secretary and they'll get you started, and a guidance counselor or a principal will meet with you and help you fill out that paperwork.
And Mr. Enman, how long does the enrollment process take? If they want to register their child and enroll their student, how quickly can that happen?
It can be as quickly as the next day. If you can come in there, have your packet filled out, have all the paperwork available to the principal's office, you could have a placement in the classroom by the next day.
And when might it take longer?
It may take longer for waiting on records, or for a proofs of residency sometimes take a little longer because we need to have, either if not a driver's license or a signed lease agreement, and sometimes these might require a notary signature.
And sometimes we need to have resources in places to meet the needs of individual children's educational plans, and that does sometimes take a little longer. We want to be sure we're ready to meet children where they're at and have everything we need for that. And sometimes that takes a couple of extra days.
Right, but certainly we try to make sure the process
quickly
is
as possible.
Right, quickly as possible. Great. So, Mr. Hackett, at the middle school, what would be different, or what additional things might have to happen for a student to enroll at that level?
Additionally, what we have are co-curricular activities where students need to provide proof of a physical, which will allow them to participate in all kinds of athletic events. That physical is good for the 3 years that they're there. We have an annual parent meeting where it's discussed as to what has to happen in those meetings. We also have what's called impact testing, which sets a baseline for the students cognitively in the event that they should get hurt. Then they would retake the test. There's the baseline, along with their doctor or provider would determine when they're eligible to come back. We also have students that can choose electives. We have accelerated courses at the 6th grade level in ELA and math. At grade 7 we have ELA math, science and social studies, and then at grade 8 we add Spanish 1 and French 1 as well.
Great. And at the high school, most registrations happen in the main office, but at the
Right.
high school it's a little bit different. Could you share how that works?
Yeah, it's all the other things, the other principles mentioned are in place for the high school in addition to the athletic participation piece. But the critical role in the interface with folks registering at the high school is with the guidance counselor.
Mhm.
And certainly the game changes a little bit educationally when the students enter the high school. We're tabulating credits and proficiencies. So a student who comes in already having attended a year or two or more of high school, there's an analysis of their past performance through transcripts or statements of proficiency from the sending schools, either within Maine or other states, that we have to consider to make the best plan for their graduation from Bangor High School. So the guidance counselor plays the critical role of not only frontline communication with the family and the registering student, but with the sending school, and perhaps with me or department heads to consider how their past educational performance in high school dovetails with what we have planned for them in meeting our graduation requirements moving forward. So the guidance counselor is one. As with all the schools, there are extended staff people that help us with any level of student need as they make the transition to the high school, whether it be social worker or school nurse or administrators up and down the line that help with those special circumstances where there may be extended plans or other considerations for a student coming in. For students who start the high school, that's the ideal scenario. They come in and they, if it's a student transferring to the high school from a non-Bangor school, we're just starting them as we would any other, but catching up on some of the communication about where their ninth grade entry point is. But again, the communication with the counselor, with administrators, and with the sending school is all part of the mix, with the counselor really being the hub.
Mm-hmm. And you brought up tuition students, that there are K-8 districts surrounding Bangor that do provide opportunities for students living in those communities to come to all Bangor schools, certainly pre-K all the way to grade 12. What if there is an individual who lives in a different community and they wanted to send a student to Bangor High School or any other school?
Yeah,
process?
We spend a lot of time in the December, January, February reaching out to those schools. We actually do site visits, often get a nice opportunity to connect with parents face-to-face in evenings. We invite students in to experience the school in a shared step-up day. Sometimes we'll have 80 or 100 students who are interested on a particular day. We host shadows where a student can come for a whole day or a half day to experience the school and actually interface with the student and visit classes. And that's all the understand the school, get a feel of the school, and make sure it's right. We feel it's right for everybody. So we really spend a lot of time reaching out to those families and making sure that they get a customized, open experience so they can understand the quality of the high school. Once that decision is made to come to Bangor High School, and we have a number of students who make Bangor High School their choice in tuition towns, we schedule an appointment for the parent individually to come in and meet with guidance and meet with me or another person that can tell them about the logistics of coming into the high school, to make the schedule and to make choices about courses and to start envisioning that graduation plan after they've made the choice.
I know that I've talked with some parents and they're concerned. They feel like Bangor schools are so large. And, you know, it's interesting. I have a family member that moved down from Aroostook County in a very, very small high school and now attends Bangor High School. What would you share with families about a transition from a very small school, and it really doesn't matter, it could be high school or middle school level. What is your experience? What do you find?
Well, we have a saying, it's a big, small school, and we try to have the students identify as classmates and identify with friendships, connections to activities, and all of those things that complement the academic program. And make it a school experience that's not just black and white but color. So we try to have parents are sometimes not put off, but what we try to do is when a student comes in as considered in high school, we try to have our conversation with the student because we don't know who they are. And we want to get to know them and we want to know their names. So in those ways, I think we belie the big school myth that they can get lost. We really try to do a good job of shrinking the school for them, giving them a vision for how 1 year is managed and how it connects to 2, and how activities and other things are going to round out the experience. So it's primarily academic, that's the mission of all the schools, but it's also that they can grow as people, as teammates, as competitors of all types, so that the school experience really is 360, not a flat one.
I think too with that is that at the middle level, school to them is a scary place when they're coming in, their body is changing, they have all kinds of different things going on. We offer 65 different after-school activities that really brings them, that makes them feel comfortable because it's something they know they're good at. We make them part of that. We will hook them with a buddy to walk around, to show them the school, indicate they're going to get lost because they are, and they will, but it will be within a week they'll know the school just like they've been here for years.
And I really think that a number of families, including my own family member, have shared that it was an easier transition than they thought, and that the opportunities, both academically, but extra and co-curricular wise, it just made them connect in whole new ways to the school. So I agree with you. In fact, I've heard the exact saying that we're a big, small school.
Right.
And that really it is a small school. And, you know, we start with personal learning plans down in the 4th grade. Can you talk a little bit about that, Mr. Enman? Because I think that personalizes the education and allows students to see how they connect with the school and how they fit in the bigger population.
And it's an excellent opportunity too when students first arrive, and we can give them a chance to tour the building and meet with myself and with the guidance counselor, and to go through and see all the things that we offer. But also part of that guidance experience is talking about the personal learning plans and start looking at their direction, what they might want to try, and then what type of learning they might want to do, or what type of extracurricular learning or co-curricular learning they might want to experience. And so they start that learning process and developing that plan so we can help them in their education and guide them as they move through the system from 4th grade all the way through graduation. And that personal learning plans all start in the 4th grade at both elementary schools on the east and west side of the city at Mary Snow and at Fairmount School.
And certainly in the K-3 level, what we're doing is a lot of work with students regarding making good choices, setting goals, but our formal plans start in 4th grade.
But even with the extracurriculars, we were talking about that goes all the way down to pre-K. And we do have a commitment on all of the schools. We try to get all of our students involved in at least one extracurricular activity. And we have lots of things going on at all the schools to help the children and their parents feel tied into our school. I think that's something that's very special.
Right. A couple of other things I think regarding questions that I receive about the registration process. First of all, we know that by law, students then are allowed to go to the school in which their parents reside and in which they reside the majority of the time. We know in today's world families have many different structures, and sometimes I hear questions from families that are divorced and they have one parent living in one community and another parent living in another community. And would one of you please share how does that work? Because I think that's a common question. Maybe Mr. Butler.
Yeah, well, it's somewhat of an easy conversation in what can be a tough family circumstance. We rely on the black and white of the law. So if there was a situation with a divorce, there's custody that's assigned, and I think what we've done a really good job of in the district is, with Dr. Webb immediately involved with a lot of the decisions, is making sure that despite the tough circumstances, we find ways to be reasonably flexible to give students an opportunity to engage in school. And I find that even though it's a stressful enough situation when families are transitioning to a new school and the dynamics of a changing family, I think we do, personally and professionally, my experience has been we do a really good job of trying to settle the waters in the interest of the student, being flexible when we can be, holding the line when we need to for different reasons, but in the end doing what we think is ultimately in the best interest of the student. So it's black and white of the law, but there's always a sub-conversation in Bangor about where do we need to be reasonably flexible and where do we need to be reasonably firm to make sure that the school is interacting with a guardian who directs the interests of the student, because that's square one.
That's right. What about those difficult times when families are in a situation where they are considered homeless? How do we handle that situation? I mean, in many ways, it's not any different than what you just answered. Maybe Mrs. Silk, you could share. What are some of the things that we do? What kinds of supports do we have?
Well, we're fortunate to have 2 social workers at our level and another one at the high school level. So 3 social workers are right here in Bangor to help us through this difficult time in people's lives. We have those social workers are able to link to community resources and help parents link to them. We have a backpack program for students that every Friday afternoon a backpack of food goes home to help people who are in a temporary situation and to help take some of that stress off their plate. We try to work with those families, again, trying to keep them in the school where it makes the most sense. If they had started the year, say, here at Vine Street, and maybe had to move across the city to get temporary housing, we would work with them through our homeless coordinator to make sure that we found the best possible place for them to go to school to make the impact on the children as minor as possible.
Like your reference to the single person in the district who's ultimately responsible for the
Right.
core knowledge procedurally about helping students and families in home situations is really critical. That's something that we've done consistently over the years to make sure that we're not only doing a good job of keeping track of those students and serving them in all kinds of ways, but having that one person who has that core knowledge that we all go to make sure, again, ultimately the interests of the student and family are met, but that we're procedurally correct in all ways. So,
and it does expedite the process
Yeah,
too. He's
right.
very confident, knows all the ins and outs, and so
Right.
he makes
just-
it faster.
He just had a full training yesterday, and who we're talking about is Dan Chadbourne, is the McKinney-Vento homeless coordinator for the city of Bangor, so that would be important to share that information. Another question that I often receive, although there are there are limited situations of this, but there are some families that choose to homeschool, and we want them to understand that if they are living in the city and have made that choice, which is a personal choice and obviously the right choice for them, they are able to access programs and courses and resources, if available, through the Bangor School Department. Mr. Hackett, could you share how they might do that?
Sure, the parent will contact us, and usually it'll start with a fine arts that the parent will want the child involved in. What we found is once we get them in our building, the more classes they tend to take, the more they want to become part of that school family. And let's say they start in 6th grade, by 8th grade, they're a full-time student ready to go on to Bangor High. Like we said, we welcome them. They can come to school for part of a program. They can take the books if available and take them home.
And so there's an application process, and that is available at each of the schools. And so families that live in the neighborhoods that have made that choice, if they want to access parts of the program or resources that are available, they would just need to visit the local neighborhood school.
Right, I think I would echo what Principal Hackett said, the phys ed programs, the art, the music. We have a lot of children who like to take advantage of those opportunities, and we do love having them in our schools.
Right.
I would encourage homeschool parents to think about that.
Our recognition of our academic achievement in Bangor is varied in many. Everything from National Blue Ribbon Schools of Excellence to Maine's higher performing and efficient schools. And they go on. And we're extremely proud of the quality of the program that students are able to access. And there are varied pathways, whether a student is a high achiever or whether a student struggles academically. I think another area that parents want to know about is safety. So at each of your levels, if you could talk a little bit about, if a parent questions, is it a safe school? Do you have bullying? Are there incidents of substance abuse? Are my children well supervised on the playground? what are some of the quick talking points that you would share at each of your level to show our commitment to students' well-being? Mrs. Silk?
I would start by saying that children are supervised from the minute they get here to the minute that they go home. And we have a great partnership with both the bus company and the Bangor Police Department to help us ensure that they travel home safely as well. And I think if you spend any amount of time here in the morning or afternoon, you will see the Bangor Police are in the neighborhood making sure that cars are going the speed limit, and which is slower in a school zone, and that children are crossing safely. We do have crossing guards at several of the major crossing points in town to help children cross. But I think it's at our level, pre-K, some of our children are as young as 3 in the fall, going up to 8. There is always an adult with them, supervising them all the time. So out on the playground, our phys ed instructors take time at the beginning of the year to go over the playground equipment, how to use it. Some equipment like monkey bars is not appropriate for our younger children, and it's hard for them to realize that they can't use them right off, but they quickly realize there's many other things to do. Classroom teachers reinforce that. So lots of rules about running and walk, where you can run, where you can walk, and just those same things that parents do at home to make sure their children are safe when they're playing. And in school, teachers, as I said, are supervising at all times the students.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Enman?
At the 4 or 5 level, it's all the points that Ms. Silk had mentioned, along with, I'd like to just focus that every school has a comprehensive emergency plan that is managed through the district, right now through the Assistant Superintendent's office, through Mr. McDonald, and we update that plan for each school. Annually, we are required to have drills for evacuations, for fire drills, for lockdowns, shelter in place, and all those drills are kept in our office and maintained and then submitted to the Assistant Superintendent's office. So every school follows those procedures. While the procedures are unique in some ways to each school, they're consistent throughout the district, and that's what ties us there. But as the elementary schools go, we're very similar with all the protocols that Ms. Silk had mentioned for the K-3 schools.
It's a good point that you're thinking about the comprehensive plan. You can't, in an emergency situation, necessarily think of everything you would want to think of. The plan lays it out for you. It's tabbed by what it might be, gives you a step-by-step. People spent thoughtful time in a non-emergency situation with many partners, I believe the fire, police. And so I find that that's a great resource for us to have if something unfortunate happened.
Good. And Mr. Hackett?
At the 6th grade level, as we follow the school system, all doors are locked when school begins. Each school is equipped with cameras so you can monitor inside and out. To address some of the more difficult issues, does bullying take place when you have 400 students in a building? Occasionally that does take place. I think the definition of bullying varies widely. But that is certainly addressed as soon as we are aware that it's occurring. We would ask that if parents are hearing that at home, a lot of the times we are not aware of that. The child doesn't tell us, the parent calls us, and then we deal with it. Substance abuse does occur occasionally. Again, we handle that as professionally as we can. We deal with the issue, we contact the parents, and then we move forward.
Right. And I think, I love that you say that if you're hearing things, as the adults that care about all children in this community, the first step is that the parents and the adults talk to each other. And every single issue we follow up on. And although it's a handful of situations, those are ones that if we can take care of them immediately, it stops it from building to something else.
Yeah, I would agree. Very similar. Nice to go into progression because you see the developmental responses as kids age. But just back to basics, the high school is a tremendously safe building. All of those things are in effect: the cameras, exterior locked doors. In addition, we have 2 security guards. They're on the north and south end of campus in the morning, not only for crossing and safety that way, but they're tied into internal communication in the building. A student doesn't leave Bangor High School during a day and not have a communication to outside security about students' authorization to leave. Doors are strobed if they're propped open, and there's immediate response. The next tier I would say down in terms of day in and day out safety is we have internal communication not only through PA, but through 2-way radios in every corner of the building. We have hall monitors. whose job is to supervise travel and to supervise large group that's non-instructional. And they're in frequent communication with our 2 assistant principals who are divided by class, 9th and 11th and 10th and 12th graders. So those routines are probably no different than any other high school. Next level, and I say, and I think it's true in any place, you handle a lot of issues with school safety with active supervision and with people that are connecting with adults and establishing supervision routines. We have those down. We have a veteran staff. We don't take any of those fundamental things for granted. We revisit them every year. What does it mean to actively supervise? What does it mean to be in a position to use your kid sense to know if something's up? Know if something's up on the group level, or know if something's up on the individual level that needs to be communicated up the line. So if there is a situation with a student, we try to be ahead of it as much as possible. All types of layers of responsive support for kids that wander off the path. I would say fundamentally the thing that we remind ourselves every year at the high school is we don't, and this kind of comes out the wrong way, we don't apologize for keeping students accountable to time and place. We think that's really important. So students miss class, they're called on it. If we have aberrations from where students are expected to be, they're answering to somebody. And if we limit those times and limit those freedoms reasonably, we think that we catch things early enough and notice routines that are off the mark so that we can get down to where it counts, the individual student level, and the communication that an adult is not only watching them, but watching them for the right purposes.
Mm. And we even received outside feedback on that. I remember having visitors that were doing a time on task analysis at Bangor High School, and they were amazed that during class time there wasn't movement in the building.
I'll tell you, the best example I give is about 3 years ago we hosted a group of Chinese educators that were here for the purpose of seeing how American high schools run. And there was a significant communication barrier. French, I'd have been okay. Chinese, not so much. And I was trying to communicate what they would see, and I was struggling. So I just brought them to the main artery of the building at a class passage, and I asked the translator to tell me, what's the Chinese word for magic? And magic and disappear. When the bell rang, there was not one student in the hall. They're in classrooms. They know the routines, and I walked around the building and said, I don't remember the word, but it was magic. They all disappeared, and they're all in doing what they're supposed to do. We have terrific kids, and we have solid, proven routines that we've stuck with and remind ourselves of every year.
That's great. That's great. Is there anything else anyone would like to add about registration or Bangor schools that would be helpful to families? And
I think I would just echo what you had said earlier. We want your children here. We're excited when you come here, and we want you to feel comfortable here. So if there's anything that you're uncomfortable with, any questions that you have, please ask. We're more than happy to take time and sit with you until you feel comfortable about your children's education. I think it's an important piece.
And I'd say regardless of where you are in the city, go into any school and everybody in there is willing to help you and wants to help you find out what's best for your child and where your child needs to go to school and what procedures you need to follow. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
thank you very much.